After months of closure, Governor Greg Abbott rolls back restrictions on Texas bars. But is the COVID coast really clear?
And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you.
On the vice presidential debate stage, the Trump pandemic response on trial.
President Donald Trump has put the health of America first.
On COVID, on the economy, on the path forward. Who prevailed in the minds of voters in this clash of running mates? And from a White House depleted by pandemic, the president calls his infection a blessing and his recovery the result of a soon-to-be available cure. I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, Bob Price, associate editor at Breitbart Texas. Next up, longtime super neighborhood leader Tomaro Bell. Tony Diaz, host of Latino politics and news on KPFT radio. Batting cleanup, conservative commentator Kathleen McKinley. And closing us out, well-known businessman and columnist Bill King. Let's begin. It was measured, it was mostly civil, and it was, for 90 minutes, a clear presentation of the pivotal choice America must make on November 3rd. In other words, the vice presidential debate was everything the initial chaotic Trump-Biden clash was not. Drawing perhaps the most attention and certainly top billing, Senator Kamala Harris's condemnation of Donald Trump's management of the pandemic. A barrage of criticism vigorously countered by Vice President Mike Pence, who leaned heavily on the president's decision to cut off travel from China. Panel, with the pandemic still claiming lives and threatening a resurgence, this is a huge issue for voters. Who prevailed here? And I'm going to start with Tomaro Bell.
To me, now this is my opinion, you all, and I know you're not going to agree with it, but that's all right with me. I believe that Kamala prevailed. It seemed to me as if he didn't answer one question. He avoided them. He went around them, but he did not answer them. She answered the questions most of the time that were addressed to her. He answered them intelligently, with information, and informatively, and made it a very good. I have to give both of them credit for the civility. I'm serious. The civility of the debate. But the way they respected each other, and when they got out of hand, they didn't keep on, they just waited, and they made their point. So the fact that it was a civil disagreement, I was pleased with that more than anything.
Bob Price, I want to get your take here.
Well, you know, the Luntz poll of independent voters who watched the debate strongly said that the vice president won hands down, and the some key left-wing, actually, political pundits who did fact-checking on this said that, despite what Tomaro said, that she was wrong or made up stuff on many, many cases, particularly on the Lincoln example on the Supreme Court. But, you know, it's on the record that she and the vice president opposed the president in stopping the travel in from China in the early stages of this. You know, if that doesn't send a message that this is a serious health issue, that shutting down travel from the second largest economy in the world, I think the message was pretty clear at that point. So all of this left-wing media hype about that the president was trying to cover it up is just malarkey. But, Kamala and the vice president are trying to take the Supreme Court nomination and say that the voters should be able to decide on this issue. But they won't say who they would nominate to the Supreme Court. They won't even address and answer the question about packing the Supreme Court. You know, they don't want to give the voters the information to make a choice. They just keep punting the ball down the road.
Okay, Kathleen McKinley, it's great to have you back on the show. What was your take when you watched the vice presidential debate?
Well, as far as COVID goes, it really bothered me that she started off with the lie that Trump had said that COVID was a hoax. You know, even AP fact check said that the Democrats' politicization of COVID was a hoax, not COVID.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so that really bothered me because Mike Pence did not come back and explain that. So a lot of people, you know, might believe that. That bothered me a lot. I know the other thing where she said the lie that he said there were very fine people on both sides, and he was referring to white supremacists, and he was not, and he made that very clear. And he said the next day, racism is an evil, and those that cause violence in its name are thugs, including KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are
After they told him
everything we hold dear. And then
he said it during the same press conference too.
Right. So he made it clear, and he said it many times, that he's condemning the white supremacists. So it really bothers me, when they perpetuate a lie about him. You can say a lot about what he really does say. So I don't think you have to lie about what...
Let me jump in here, Kathleen. Another bread and butter point of contention in this debate was taxes, with the vice president warning that a Biden administration would raise them on all Americans, and Senator Harris pledging hikes on only corporations and folks making more than $400,000 a year. Bill King, want to hear you on this.
Well, look, either administration is going to have to raise taxes. The deficits are completely out of control. And this is typical, campaign rhetoric. I'm going to lower your taxes. I'm going to give you all these benefits. Let's promise everything we can promise. The fact is we are running astronomical deficits, and something's going to be done to close it. So both sides are lying about the fact that they're not going to raise taxes in the future.
Okay, Tony, we've heard from Bob Price in the past, who says the economy is the biggest issue here and taxes are the biggest part of the economy. Do you think this is a losing issue, an issue that the Democratic ticket can overcome?
Well, let's stop pretending that there is logical discourse going on, because this vice presidential debate only made sense after the craziness of the presidential debate. And let's also, each side says they're lying. Let's get something straight. I want to point out the lack of Latinos on the side of the panelists, on the issues. To me, it's insulting the Latino community that we don't have our questions brought on there. We're not considered at all. And if we're going to talk about white supremacists, what really offends me too is the president has not come out right now and disclaimed all the people trying to kidnap governors. And he's yet to come out against the white supremacists. I want to come out forcefully against the white supremacists that slaughtered
8 times,
US
citizens
in El Paso.
That's just a lie.
Mexican Americans and Chicanos in El Paso. A white supremacist killed my community, my people. The president has stepped up. I'm glad that Kamala Harris is taking Republicans to task for not basically stepping on white supremacists that are killing our people in the streets and planning to disrupt the government. That's really, to me, the major issue that's been ignored. Don't pretend there's logic here. There's not.
Bob Price, 20 seconds to rebut.
President for you, and it's
Bob Price, 20 seconds.
All right, it was the president's FBI that protected that Michigan governor, that uncovered that plot to kidnap her and moved her 6 or 7 times to safe locations. So while they continued the investigation and made an arrest that put 13 people in these militia groups into prison. The president has repeatedly condemned white supremacists and taken legal action against them. The Department of Homeland Security lists them as the highest threat to national security in this country. So don't say this administration is not doing anything about it.
You don't read it.
Okay, gotta leave it there. Gotta leave it there, guys. When we come back, our examination of the vice presidential debate continues with an issue of keen interest: the Democratic drive to eliminate all fossil fuels. Welcome back. Of intense interest to many here in Texas, the vice president's claim in this week's debate that a Biden administration would ban fracking and seek the rapid elimination of fossil fuels through adoption of the Green New Deal. Both Harris and Biden have flatly denied any plan to outlaw fracking, despite having both publicly spoken in favor of a ban during the primary process. Panel, who should we believe here? I'm going to start with you, Kathleen McKinley.
Frankly, that was one of the most surprising things at the debate when Senator Harris went all pro-fracking, because her and Biden have both said in the past that they would ban fracking. And we're not talking a year ago, we're talking 2 months ago. So I don't know where the whole, hey, we're all on the fracking train now came from. But of course, fracking is a good thing. It is, even Obama's EPA said that it does not hurt the planet. So, and it makes money, and it makes money for Texas. So, I'm all
Okay.
for it.
Okay, Tony, is the Democratic ticket just pandering to Pennsylvania?
No, not at all. They're basically worried about actual jobs because here's the news. The economy and evolution are going to get rid of fracking at some point. So what I love about Kamala and Joe is that they're worrying about keeping professionals at the professional level. Because guess what? Like coal mining, the job, that's going to go away. When? We don't know, but it's going to go away. So Republicans need to wake up and understand climate change is real. We're going to change the way we fuel cars in society. And that's just coming. That's progress. That's good. Joe and Kamala are preparing Texans for that because I don't want to see a whole generation of people unemployed because they bet on a field that's disappearing.
Bill King, Texas has 40% of the nation's petroleum, a quarter of its natural gas. What's your take on this?
Yeah, look, eventually we're going to not burn fossil fuels, but that is decades, probably many decades down the road. There's got to be a bridge from where we are today to where we have completely renewable sources. And the one that's most likely to be the winner in that is going to be natural gas, which, by the way, would be good for Texas. And here's the really important thing. If you ban fracking and you have less natural gas, what we're going to do is go backwards to burning coal. Almost all of the reduction in carbon emissions in the United States, which have been substantial over the last decade, has come from us converting from coal to natural gas. Banning fracking is the worst thing for climate change.
Okay, Bob, jump in here. This is a winning topic for the Republicans in Texas.
Yeah, I got to laugh at Tony's sudden concern for jobs in the oil industry. You know, the Obama-Biden administration, time after time, was blocking the Keystone Pipeline, blocking fracking, blocking all kinds of things that would create jobs in the industry. And as soon as President Trump took over, he opened all of that up and actually created natural gas as an export product, which the President Obama and Biden denied. They wouldn't allow natural gas to be exported. And that's a direct threat to the pocketbook of Vladimir Putin. So don't give us this Russian stuff either, Tony. The president has constantly expanded the natural gas and fracking. Kamala Harris has been all over the board on this issue, and Biden is walking back all of his statements now, and all of a sudden AOC is going, whoa, wait a minute, you guys are going too far to the center.
We got to leave it right there. Got to go to break. Still ahead. The president out of the hospital and claiming he's fully healed after his personal confrontation with coronavirus. Question now, can he safely hit the campaign trail? Welcome back. The President of the United States spent the week under treatment for the same virus that has killed more than 200,000 Americans. Mr. Trump on Wednesday posted a video touting the antibody cocktail Regeneron as a miracle cure that had restored him to full health. The president went on to pledge emergency approval of the experimental drug, followed by widespread distribution at no cost to the American public.
It's a cure. For me, I walked in, I didn't feel good. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great. I wanted to get out of the hospital. I think this was a blessing from God that I caught it. This was a blessing in disguise.
Look, there was a lot more news emanating from a White House described as a ghost town because so many members of the Trump team are infected. Most notably, the president's refusal to participate in a virtual debate resulting in its cancellation. Panel, much to unpack here. Tomaro Bell, take your pick.
Listen, I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of people who have had COVID. I know multiple people who have died from COVID. I don't know anybody who described it as a blessing from God. I had somebody in my house who had COVID who's less than a third his age, and they were not covered. No pre-existing. Good Lord, I don't know, they're like a tenth of his weight. Okay, I mean, they're a very small, healthy young person. They didn't recover as quick as he claiming he recovered. And even though they had minimum symptoms, didn't have to go to hospital, didn't need oxygen, didn't need whatever cocktail he got, they knew to stay away from people for 14 days, at least as CDC requires. For him to be touting, he's a miracle worker. Oh my goodness.
Okay, Kathleen McKinley, what do you make of the president's week?
Well, I think Tamara sort of made his point for him, as she was saying that he recovered so quickly, and he said it's because of this drug that he's willing, any American to be able to have. You said that your friend didn't recover so well, but maybe if she had had this drug, she would have recovered well. But, there was a tweet by Trump that said, my blood is the vaccine. And then someone said, no, that was a made up tweet, but I totally believed it for just a moment, because I just really don't think he thinks about what he says before he says it. And he thinks if he feels healthy, he should go out there and do it. But I have to agree. I think, he needs to wait 2 weeks. So.
Okay, no one on this panel has studied this pandemic more thoroughly than Bill King. So, Bill, as you saw all of this unfold, what was your take?
Well, let me talk about monoclonal antibodies for a second, because this really is a very significant development. First of all, this is not new technology. I think the first one was approved back in the 80s sometime. It's been used for cancer very effectively. It's basically engineering a artificial antibody that goes after the particular pathogen. And it appears that what Regeneron has done here is highly effective. It's been through phase 1, phase 2 trials. They've got about 60 days of data into phase 3. They're going to request emergency use authorization, and it does look like it's going to have a dramatic therapeutic effect on people with serious illness. What the CDC says is that if you're not getting tested to know that you've cleared the virus, you're supposed to wait until 10 days after you're symptom-free. And so 10 days after you're symptom-free ought to be sometime sort of the middle of next week. But what they should do, which most people can't do because they don't have access, they should be testing him on a daily basis to get the exact viral load and see exactly where he is. And then they could resolve this. But he's too hard-headed to do that.
Okay, Tony, take 30 seconds. Bob to follow.
Well, Donald Trump is a super spreader. And what Republicans need to decide, especially Republican candidates, if they're part of the Trump super spreader party or part of the Republican Party, because Donald Trump is basically making up this mythical version where Americans can be cured by this whim of his. He's not promising all the doctors he's surrounded by. Remember that picture? Working class families, you don't have 10 doctors surrounding you. You're lucky if you get one. Additionally, he is hopped up on steroids that Americans won't have access to. Additionally, they took him out of the hospital. I'll bet you that bunker that he hides in is tricked out like a hospital. So every time he makes these claims, Americans know he's going to kill them all.
You should not be minimizing the importance of monoclonal antibodies. This is
minimizing Trump.
Well-established medicine. And
okay, it's my turn, guys. The president
of America.
Hold on. Bob, 30 seconds.
All right, so during the Obama-Biden administration, they coined the phrase lead from behind. This president is leading from the front. And when you lead from the front, there are risks associated with that. And one of them is that you catch the virus. But what we saw in this is that the medicines that have been told to us that are out there actually work. This president received the medication, which, by the way, he signed an executive order giving people the right to choose medication, and it worked.
Okay, still ahead. We're leaving it right there. Still ahead, the emerging scandal surrounding Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Will the lightning rod of controversy soon be forced out of office? Welcome back. Folks at the state capitol continue to buzz after the stunning simultaneous outcry of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's 7 top lieutenants. All have alleged their former boss has abused the power of his office and committed crimes including bribery on behalf of an Austin real estate operator named Nate Paul. Paxton denied wrongdoing and says he'll remain in office. According to his accusers, the Attorney General hired an outside lawyer using taxpayer dollars to intimidate Mr. Paul's business rivals and investigate federal agents. Bob Price, I want to hear what you have to say on this.
Well, there's clearly some serious allegations here that are made by 7 of the top people in the Texas office of the Attorney General. When your first assistant, your number 2 guy in the company, leaves the organization and your previous first assistant comes out and calls for your resignation, there's definitely smoke there. This is going to be investigated very deeply. Paxton responded by shifting the blame back to them and saying that they were trying to block an investigation. So there's allegations going both directions. We're going to have to see where this goes.
Bill King, Paxton's already indicted on securities fraud issues. Is this a problem?
This doesn't pass the smell test. I don't know whether there was actually a violation of criminal law or not, but you should not be doing these kind of things as the Attorney General if what the 7 people have alleged is all true. Look, Paxton has been a liability for the Republicans for some time, and I can't imagine him running for re-election in 2022. So I think after this election, you're going to see a move to either get him to resign or to at least say he's not going to run again. But my guess is they'll try to get him resigned so they can appoint someone better to defend the seat in 22 is what I kind of expect to happen.
Tomaro Bell, what do you think? Does Paxton resign or should he resign?
What I think is I don't understand why his Republican colleagues are not saying something, because if he was Democratic, they would be on this. This man was already indicted. And I'm going to tell you, when you have your lieutenants who have literally worked with you every day coming down and say they can't do it no more, that they cannot take it, that they have signed to be whistleblowers, you know there's got to be something there. In this pandemic, as bad as people want to keep their jobs, they coming out and saying this, and you have heard nothing from Republican leadership.
That's not true at all, Tomaro.
Okay.
That's just not true.
Okay.
Whatever.
Representative Chip Roy came out and said he should.
Abbott is the head of Republicans here.
And he issued an immediate statement on
Tony,
it.
jump in here.
So Republicans are pretending to wake up because you had Cornyn come out and say that he wasn't happy with this and he hopes it's investigated. Republicans must really address this, not hope. They need to investigate it, because here's what's going to happen. We have an election coming up, and Texans are looking at this. Are Republicans really about law and order? Do they think they're above the law? Do they want to sweep this under the rug? These are serious allegations. He needs to resign. Republicans need to speak against this, and we need to vote him. All Republicans who support him out.
Okay, Kathleen, final 20 seconds goes to you.
Well, everyone on this panel that is either conservative or Republican is saying that he needs to be investigated, and this doesn't seem right at all. So I think there are Republicans. We do care about.
They resign.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, and neither did Representative Roy in saying that yesterday. So I think that should.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Up next, Governor Greg Abbott ratchets up the reopening of Texas. The big question, will putting bars back in business backfire in a surge of coronavirus? Welcome back. This week, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced bars here in the Lone Star State could reopen as soon as October 14th at 50% capacity. But the governor's announcement left veto power in the hands of individual counties, which Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo immediately exercised, along with chief executives in nearly all the state's most populous counties. Speaking to the Texas Tribune, the president of the Texas Bar and Nightclub Alliance said Governor Abbott has essentially passed the buck. Bill King, I'm going to you. You think we're ready to open up the bars?
Well, I thought that I thought Abbott made the right decision here in leaving it up to local officials, because the coronavirus outbreak is dramatically different from one location to the other, and what's going on in Houston is incredibly different from what's going on in Abilene or even smaller cities than that. So I thought leaving it up to the locals made sense. You know, I've been pretty critical of Judge Hidalgo leaving us at alert red and all that. But I have to agree on this one. I think she's right. I think we probably need to hold off on opening the bars, at least until we get a month or so into school openings and see how that goes.
Tony, you think this might backfire on the governor? I mean, he's rolled back a reopening in the past. Are we ready?
It seems really haphazard. Additionally, he knows what County Judge Hidalgo is going to rule on this. So it really seems like he wanted her to do the hard work on this. And we really need a cohesive plan, I think. I think just like President Trump has left it up to 50 states, we have 50 different rules. Now we've got all these hundreds of counties here. So now it's 50 different states, 50 different rules times 100 different counties plus. We really need a cohesive plan. I think this just shows the limitations of this Republican approach to dangerous issues. And we need the economy better, but this is not going to do it.
Okay, Kathleen McKinley, is the governor rolling the dice here?
Look, if Trump had come out with telling all states what to do, y'all would just be calling him a tyrant. You know that. But this is the way the Constitution works, and the states decide what's best for each state. And there are different regions that were hardly affected and regions that were. But so I understand Governor Abbott doing this, but my personal opinion is I think we should open everything up, because I don't think we can hide from this virus. We're all going to get it sooner or later. That's my opinion. Yes, and I wear a mask. I'm pro-mask. I'm pro, distancing and everything else. But it's just, we can't hide from it. We've never seen anything like this before, and we've got to start living our lives again.
Tomaro Bell, does the governor's move worry you, or is it time?
I agree with what Bill said. What is happening in Abilene, Odessa, Lamesa is not the same as happening in Houston. And I think that they should look at the regions. This is a big state, okay? So I do believe that they should leave it up to the local governments. Honestly, I'd be lying to y'all. I ain't been in a bar in, I don't know, I can't even tell you, 30 years or whatever. So I don't know what happened in a bar. So I don't know if you say 50% capacity. I don't think they have chairs. So are they going to be on top of each other? Will they be allowed to wear masks? They got to take them off to drink. I mean, I literally say, look, they need to do anything they need to do. I want to be clear with you to protect people, get people back to work. That's just how.
Okay, Bob, you think Abbott is right in going ahead and expanding the reopening?
Well, local control is certainly important in this, and I think the reason the big counties are objecting to it, particularly Dallas and Houston, is that the requirement is that the counties help enforce the rules and regulations on it, and they don't want to do that. So I thought the more important thing that happened was the expansion of the amusement parks and other tourist venues to 75% capacity, because that not only helps those businesses, but it helps the satellite businesses that pop up around them, the restaurants, the bars, the hotels, tourist shops, all these independent small businesses. All of those get lifted up in the same action.
Okay, had lunch with Bill King yesterday at a local restaurant, pretty well known. Place was packed. Is this any different, Bill?
Well, there is some evidence that the way people behave in bars as opposed to restaurants are more likely to spread the virus. The more you drink, the more you're liable to talk loudly, sort of be close to people. And that doesn't really happen in restaurants. So I do think there's a difference between restaurants and bars. And look, I'm more of a viral bull. I think we ought to be going towards getting things open. But I just think right now, when we're trying to get schools open, which is so incredibly more important than getting bars open, I think we need to see how that goes and then come back to this in 30 days or so. So I agree with Hidalgo's putting it off for a while.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Up next, a state judge nullifies Houston's landmark pension bailout deal. We'll talk about the financial danger lying dead ahead if the ruling is allowed to stand. Welcome back. A state district court judge has declared unconstitutional a portion of Houston's landmark pension reform plan, which could severely jeopardize the city's already fragile financial health. The court agreed with the Houston Firefighters Retirement Fund, which has claimed it never agreed to the level of benefit cuts brought about by the reform. Mayor Sylvester Turner has said the cuts were necessary to stabilize a pension system $8 billion in the red. The city has pledged a vigorous appeal. Okay, panel, while this is pretty complicated stuff, what's your understanding of the bottom line? Bill King.
So this was an issue that we all knew about back in 2017. When I was in Austin working on this, this was discussed ad nauseum about whether or not this violated the state constitution. And everybody recognized it was a risk. And I just thought it was incredibly irresponsible to go forward with this major rework, knowing that it was possible this was going to happen down the road. And now it's happened. It's extremely consequential. I think it completely wrecks the entire deal. By the way, what's going to happen if the firefighters get out of it? A bunch of police officers and municipal workers are also going to try to opt out of this. So there's no telling what the long-term consequences of it are. Now, of course, the I guess several billion-dollar question is whether it's upheld on appeal or not, and I think that's less clear. If you look at the language in the statute, it clearly contradicts what the Constitution says, and the issue will be whether the Court of Appeals can find some way to reconcile this conflicting language or not. We'll have to wait and see. Unfortunately, it's going to be a long time we know that.
Okay, Tomaro Bell, you keep a pretty close eye on City Hall. Are folks worried about this, and should they be?
I don't believe people are worried about this, but they should be, because the consequences of this, if this right here, this ruling is upheld, is phenomenal for the city's finances. The economy is already in a downward spiral that we don't know how long it's going to last. But if you throw in this, and the city has to cover this, where are they going to get the money from? Where, the state put a cap on how much you can raise property taxes. So where will they get the money from? This is something that everybody needs to keep an eye on. And the appeals are going to last for several years. So it probably will be for whoever comes behind the current mayor and is the next mayor to deal with.
Okay, Bill, back to you real quickly. I mean, this was at the fundamental level that led to anger by the firefighters, Prop B, and the two lawsuits that are still before the appeals court. I mean, this is a big mess.
Yeah, I've never understood why Turner let this get so far so far alienated from the firefighters. There's no saying a general can't be at war with his own troops. And this has just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. And you can't just say it's my way or the highway. These people have rights, and they've got a lot of political.
We got to leave it there. Up next, in a time of national division and heated rhetoric, a foiled malicious plot to kidnap Michigan's governor. Welcome back. Wolverine Watchmen. It's not fiction. That's actually the group's real name. And what was also dangerously real was their plot to kidnap Michigan's Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer. But before the crime could unfold, FBI agents arrested 6 direct conspirators and 7 associates of the self-styled militia cell. Visibly shaken, Whitmer called the president complicit in the alleged plot, citing his recent call to a known hate group to, quote, stand back and stand by. A frequent critic of Whitmer, Mr. Trump, tweeted in April, "Liberate Michigan." Pennell, the president's press secretary, accused Whitmer of sowing division with her statement. What do you think? Bob Price, I'm going to let you take that.
Well, first, it was President Trump's FBI that moved the governor to 6 different locations to keep her safe during this investigation. This incident, while it's horrific in its nature, it's not about conservatives. It's not about white supremacy. It's about lawlessness. These people are more akin to Antifa than they are to any Republican or white supremacist group. They don't take any direction from Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, they called Donald Trump the enemy in saying that every employee of the government is an enemy of the people. These are radical, extremist, anti-government, lawless people who are trying to undermine the authority of the state of Michigan and of the American people. It's the same kind of mentality that you see in Portland, Oregon going on, where there's just complete lawlessness. You see it in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, where lawlessness is going on. And you see it in this whole mentality of throwing the borders wide open, disregarding the law of this country, and moving forward with a lawless agenda.
Tony, I see you shaking your head. You think this is different?
This is very different. And let's get something straight. The president is president, and he then signs a law. That's when something becomes effective. At the end of the day, he has to sign. He has to put his name on something. He has yet to put his name or to sign on the dotted line to renounce this sort of white supremacy and this lawlessness.
That's just not true, Tony. You're not on topic.
Hold on, let him speak.
The fact that we can debate this means that fringe individuals are debating this in their heads, and then they think, well, let me read between the lines. We're above the law. Let me too try and exercise as if they are agents of the state to kidnap a governor. This can't happen in the United States of America. This has to be stopped. And the fact that we debate it makes no sense. Donald Trump has to come against this immediately and vociferously.
Kathleen McKinley, Tony makes the case that the president was dog whistling to white supremacy groups. You think that's wrong?
I think that's wrong. I do not think he was this is not even a white supremacist group. The leader is on video saying that Trump is a tyrant, and another one that was involved had been to a Black Lives Matter protest and on video saying that he supported the Black Lives Matter. Not exactly the white supremacists. This was a militia group, and Trump designated the KKK as a domestic terrorist organization this year. So I think, and I will say too about the Proud Boys, you keep talking about that, and Biden is the one who said Proud Boys, and he said who stand back. He didn't even know who the Proud Boys were. That was Biden who brought that up, because the Proud Boys are about 13 people. And he does not dog whistle. I'm sorry. There is no.
These actual terrorists are white. It's easy to condemn them.
Okay, stop for a second. Let me hear from Tomaro Bell. As this unfolded yesterday, what did you think, Tomaro?
Well, first off, I was very grateful that the Michigan governor was not hurt. That's number one. I think that militia is a more appropriate title, because if I'm mistaken, somebody correct me, the Michigan governor is white. Masochistic, for damn show. I think they have a problem with a woman as the leader of Michigan. I really feel that. And I do believe that they are just anti-government as well. Now, that is how I feel about the individuals who they caught, because this lady is white who they were trying to kill. I really believe it was more of a militia and masochistic than anything else.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Still ahead, he's the hard-charging Democrat taking a second big swing at turning Texas 22 blue. We're talking with diplomat turned candidate Sri Kulkarni on the other side of this break. Welcome back. 2 years ago, Democrat Sri Kulkarni came within 5 points of upsetting longtime incumbent Pete Olson in the congressional district dominated by Fort Bend County. This time around, the former diplomat and direct descendant of Sam Houston believes his progressive message will prevail over Republican Troy Nehls in a battleground race most experts rate a toss-up. 23 days until the election, and I know you're meeting with voters every day. What is their top concern?
You have workers who can't get back into their businesses, small business owners who've been hurting, who've shuttered their doors, and we have people who are on the front lines right here, healthcare workers, doctors and nurses, who are going out and fighting the coronavirus every day. And so we need to get it under control. And the things we need to do are pretty simple. One is we need to wear masks, not say that they are communist and un-American like my opponent has said, but it's the most American thing to do. The patriotic thing to do is to wear them out of respect for others, your community, and even your family members who might get infected. And lastly, we need to have rapid testing available, not testing that comes back in 7 to 10 days, but within a few hours like we have in our hospitals. Because if you don't know whether you're infected in those 7 to 10 days, how can you possibly go back to work or school?
Republicans have said they will preserve coverage for Americans with pre-existing conditions. Should voters in CD22 believe them as they simultaneously try to dismantle Obamacare?
They have been doing everything possible to take away coverage for pre-existing conditions all this time. And I think that the voters are smarter than that. They know who's standing up for their health care, who's been talking about their health care, who is going to fight for the health care of our families. I support strengthening the ACA. I support people being able to keep their private insurance if they like it, but I also support expanding access and bringing down the cost of medication, especially our prescription drug prices, which are way too high.
Your opponent, Mr. Nehls, has aligned himself pretty closely with President Trump. Why, at a fundamental level, is that kind of antithetical to the intense, expanding diversity of CD22?
So CD22 is one of the most diverse districts in the entire country. We come from every faith background, every racial background. We speak over 120 languages here. And I think the main difference is the agenda of divisiveness, of saying that this is not about all of us together, it's about us versus them. That's something that we need to get past in America. The answer to all of these challenges, whether it's coronavirus or whether it's just how we do our democracy right now, is to be more inclusive. So in our campaign, We're striving to be the most inclusive campaign ever in Texas history. We are campaigning in 27 different languages right now. We have people of every faith community, and we even have people across the political spectrum, from conservative to liberal. We have Republicans who are supporting us right now, because all of us know that the only way we're going to get past these challenges is by uniting, not dividing.
Sri Kulkarni, you served our nation as a diplomat for 14 years. How will that experience aid you in representing folks in Fort Bend and Brazoria County within the United States Congress?
Sure. So I've worked in some of the most dangerous places in the world, like Iraq, for example. I've worked in conflict zones with people in tension. And I think right now we need more of that in our government. We don't need more extremism, more hyper-partisanship, more polarization. We need people who are willing to sit down at the table, work across the aisle to solve problems. The bottom line is that our country wasn't founded by a bunch of people who agreed on everything. Our country was founded by people who disagreed very strongly, but they agreed on one thing, that we were stronger together as a nation than we were separated. And that means that I care about your interests and you care about mine. Otherwise, we would not be a nation. And our differences, we settle them at a table. We negotiate on them like adults. And that's what I'm going to do in Congress.
Next, we look ahead with trepidation to this week's Senate confirmation hearings of Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. Welcome back. 2 full years have passed and the wound still aches. A deep and painful blow to our national soul, inflicting during the utterly brutal hearings preceding the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Dignity, compassion, decency, and any regard for collateral human damage completely discarded in pursuit of judicial leverage and the raw power it can deliver. The spectacle left millions shaken and fearful that our political process had coarsened beyond redemption. Tomorrow, in a nation that has grown even more deeply divided, within a capital where power remains coveted with ruthless abandon, Judge Amy Coney Barrett will face the same process. Will she be a proxy target for politicians aiming at the president? Will her lifetime of truthfulness and integrity be questioned? Will the tenets of her deep personal faith come under assault? Here is my hope that senators on both sides will be firm but fair. That senators will seek to illuminate character without resorting to character assassination, and that the fitness of Amy Coney Barrett will be measured by her judicial acumen and not the contested date of her confirmation. But mostly for those at the troubled heart of American democracy, I hope for an overdue return of what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. That's my take on all our time. Thanks for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level with Fox News Sunday and host Chris Wallace. From all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.